Hello. The Pittsburgh branch of the NAACP is at a crossroads. The organization is preparing to elect new leadership that will take it through a rebuilding phase. We'll talk to 3 local leaders who want to be part of the local change. And what is the state of Black mental health and the family here in Pittsburgh? Well, that is the question and the theme of this year's Black Mental Health Summit. We'll talk to the organizers and one of the panelists leading this important discussion. Plus, the Pittsburgh Public Theater is kicking off its 2025-26 season. We'll talk to the managing director about what's on stage and what programs are in store for the summer. So pull up a chair and meet us at the corner. Intersection starts right now. Hello, I'm Lisa Smith, the Director of Community Impact at KDKA Plus and the host of Intersections. For more than 100 years, the NAACP has been a force within the Black community, both in Pittsburgh and nationally. From the Pittsburgh branch's launch, which was supported by one of the group's founders, W.E.B. Du Bois, to the instrumental role it played in organizing the Pittsburgh participants to attend the March on Washington, the Pittsburgh branch has a historical relevance. Now in 2025, local members are looking at what is the future and what it looks like and who will lead them. A major election is coming up for a new slate of executive committee members, including the branch president, vice presidents, and other officers. So joining me today are 3 people who hope to be elected to lead the Pittsburgh branch of the NAACP. We have with us Jacqueline Hill, a candidate for branch president, Terry Minor Spencer, a candidate for vice president, along with Brenda Tate, who is a candidate for 3rd vice president. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So let's start out a little bit of, kind of setting where things are right now with the branch. And so, Jacqueline, I'll kind of start it with you. Kind of help people understand at home, like, where are we right now in terms of needing to have this new slate of candidates for the executive committee?
I think we're at a critical point in that this is an opportunity to rebuild the branch for the 21st century. I think up until now, we have been able to benefit from the efforts of the past. However, going forward, we'd like to see more young people engaged in the branch because they need to take it for the next 100 years, okay? So making sure that people understand that we want to hear from them, that we value what they have to say, and we want them to engage, to begin putting initiatives and programs and services in place that meets the needs of the Black community today. So, Terry, I talked a little bit about the rich history of this branch. So, going forward, how does the future keep up with that history?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So to go back to what Ms. Jackie was saying with our youth involving our community, making sure that we have a presence in the community and using the technology that we have now to make sure that the NAACP Pittsburgh branch is there for the next 100 years. So we have to make sure that we get involved and hear the voices of the individuals that know how to bring us forward and not, stay behind.
Yeah. So Brenda, when you look at this branch, what are we hearing from the community? What is the community saying that they want from their Pittsburgh branch?
Well, as you know, Lisa, I am a direct beneficiary of the NAACP. My 40 years in law enforcement, I would not have had that opportunity had it not been for Alma Speed Fox and Harvey Adams and those people. So the people in the community, I'm not hearing at this point how they connect with the NAACP the way I connected. I'm still in the same community, the same block I live in, I was born in, and the people are not the same in that block. So the message and conversation is not as it was when I was on the ground and young in the community.
Yeah. So, Jackie, why do you want to be president?
Because I think the NAACP creates a firewall that protects Black Americans across this country, and specifically Pittsburgh. And we do not have that firewall currently. And everyone is aware of what's happening at the federal level. Now, just basic things that people take for granted. A lot of our young Black men do not have their birth certificate, their state ID. So if they were to get picked up, which is highly likely in this environment with ICE and Army coming into cities, what protects them? How do we help them? So engaging with people to be proactive, having conversations, how do we look out for each other? Building that communication and that network so that we can survive this is one of the reasons. I don't want to do it forever, but I certainly want to see it rebuilt so that the younger people can benefit from it in the same way that I did.
Yeah.
Whether people admit it or not, or realize it or not, any progress that was made in this city, in the city of Pittsburgh, for Black Americans was done by the NAACP.
Yeah. And so, you kind of touched on membership. So Terry, how would, the three of you as members of this new executive committee, if elected, how do you get people to say, yes, I want to be a part of the NAACP?
Yeah, I would have to go back to Ms. Jackie's vision. When we had our meeting, her vision of how to get back into the center of the community and letting the community know where we are and that we are here. I think starting there first, and then her vision of how to gainfully get memberships with fundraisers and going back to the basics, not recreating the wheel, doing what we know works. And that is engaging with the community. And so I think that Ms. Jackie's vision coming in, if elected as president, is what the second priority was on membership. The first was, fundraising and making sure that the community know that we are here.
Yeah. So Brenda, what happens next? There's a vote coming up. When is that, and when do we find out, what the outcome will be?
The election will be July the 9th. July the 9th is the election. And the process will be electronic. And most of the members that have already registered will get an email. And they will be able to vote for their candidate. And we're hoping they vote for us. And again, we support Jackie's vision for this NAACP. We know that she's a strong person and a strong leader, and we want to support that.
Okay. Well,
No, if I
one
may,
final,
just
10 seconds you got.
Okay. The election is electronic. I think that's important. People are used to going to the Hill House, lining up, and it was a big party, if you will. But the election is electronic, and we understand some people may be challenged with that, but we want to make sure we're aware that we're available to assist should they need it.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here. We'll be watching to see what happens and probably have you back on the show.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We appreciate it. And coming up, the connection between mental health and the Black family. Intersections. We'll be right back. Well, many families can attest to the impact of mental health on their daily lives, but are there different challenges when it comes to Black families? Well, this month, NAMI Keystone, Pennsylvania is hosting its annual Black Mental Health Summit. And here to share more are Alita Barnett. She is the NAMI Director of Mental Health Equity and Community Engagement, along with Taylor Pinkston, a licensed social worker and clinical practice program manager at Healthy Start Pittsburgh. Thank you both so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So, Alita, this has just grown from the beginning. I mean, you guys, are you surprised at this growth that you've seen over the, like 3-4 years?
Yes, I am surprised.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. I also think that this conversation is becoming more open, just in our community and society as a whole. I think after the pandemic, because this started almost 4 years ago, right after that, the conversation around mental health has really come to the forefront. People understand a little bit more about what it's like to have depression and anxiety after going through the pandemic, which everyone shared together.
Right. Who usually comes to the summit?
So we have a wide variety of people. There's a lot of service providers, there's families, sometimes they bring their children, and people of all races and genders come to learn, more about the different unique challenges I think that Black communities and families face around mental health.
Yeah. And this year you're focusing on Black families. Why come at it from a family group perspective?
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of stigma, first of all, around mental health, and it can really, start to be destigmatized within the family. If the families are more open to have these conversations, learn how to talk with each other around mental health, not just when it's a crisis, but just as a daily conversation. I like to use analogies, so I think about the movie Soul Food.
Yeah.
And how the uncle lived in the attic. He was fed, he was housed, he was loved by his family. However, if his mental health diagnosis or conditions probably wasn't a diagnosis, right? But his mental health condition, if that could have been treated, he could have been at the table on Sundays with his family. So there's a lot of that kind of hidden and within families that they don't want to talk about it. And a lot of people like Uncle Pete in the attic that is being cared for but not living their best life.
Yeah. So Taylor, you're one of the panelists, and the session is the impact of untreated and undiagnosed mental health issues in the family. When you hear that, like that scenario you talked about with Soul Food,
Uncle Pete, that was really
Uncle
good.
Pete,
Yeah.
we're not recognizing and we're not seeing things, or we are seeing it and we're just not doing enough. What is happening?
I think it's ancestral, it's historical, it's been passed down through the generations to kind of silence ourselves, to hide, because at a point in time we were treated even further in the less than conversation if you were considered crazy or had a diagnosis or something was going on that wasn't considered normal. And I think through the generations that's been passed down, and we still do a lot of hiding through shame because of these stigmas. And I think, like Alita is saying, we are seeing more conversations and normalizing of mental health and it being something that everyone has. But we do still see a lot of people really struggle to be honest with themselves or even know what symptoms to look out for and pay attention to around things like depression and anxiety, the more common disorders that we see.
Now, you have something called self-love sessions. What is that?
So, long story short, I'm certified as a self-love coach, so to speak, and because I'm a licensed social worker, I've combined the two. So I do cognitive behavioral therapy at Healthy Start from prenatal and postpartum mothers with depression, because that's a part of my story, being diagnosed with depression while I was pregnant and also having generalized anxiety. So it's very full circle, but I also am the Heart Advocate, which is a licensed self-love social worker, and one of the services that I provide are self-love sessions. So it's therapeutic, very much coaching style, but very much rooted in your self-worth. That is the angle, that is the goal of sessions, to strengthen the self-worth of the individual.
So what is the connection between the self-love and the mental health?
They're
overlapping entirely, and it's why I do the work that I do. I consider myself the bridge between the mental health clinical space and the holistic self-love world, because self-love is a part of everything, just like mental health is a part of everything as well. And so if your self-worth, if you do not see yourself as valuable, that could trigger a mental health episode like depression or anxiety. So they really do go hand in hand, and I do the work to help people see that.
Do we as African Americans struggle with not loving ourselves?
Absolutely, and I know you would agree. I think it comes from the disparities that we see through white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism, these things that we have to overcome, these barriers that are placed upon us. So why wouldn't that, chip at self-worth and seeing yourself as enough, as good enough, as doing enough, if you're constantly being faced with discrimination and prejudice?
Yeah. Well, Alita, the event is coming up quickly. However, there's a wait list. So the information is on the screen, and if you would like to attend, you can go online and email NAMI to see if they might have a spot left over, or you can hopefully make it next year. Thank you both so much for being with us.
Lisa.
We really appreciate it, and a continued success.
Thank you.
And we also want to mention that if you or someone you know is struggling and needs mental health help, you can call or text the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is 988. And coming up, some great plays are coming to the Pittsburgh Public Theater. We'll tell you what they are. Intersections, we'll be right back. Well, if you love the theater, you are in the right place. The Pittsburgh Public Theater has unveiled its 2025-26 season. And so joining us today to share more about these great productions is Shonda McDill. She is the Managing Director of the Pittsburgh Public Theater. Thank you so much for being back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So before we talk about the plays on stage, we want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
Because you are a woman of color in the arts honoree.
Yes.
And part of that involves a sabbatical,
It does.
which you are breaking in a sense to be with
to be
us
here.
today.
I know, but
So-
you're not paying me to be here, so it's
Right,
not paid labor.
right.
It's a pleasure. Yes.
But tell us about what that's like, and why you're taking the sabbatical, and what you're doing during their sabbatical.
When I think about why I'm taking the sabbatical, I think about my mother when she found out that I had received it, and she cried. At the age of 2, my mother started her own organization. For 40 years, she, organized it. I remember helping her put together board books on our dining room table. Oftentimes, particularly Black women or women of color in the arts in particular, you don't have the opportunity to rest. You don't have the finances to rest. You don't have the coaching that even if you're resting, you know how to spend the time and what you might be able to do to kind of edify yourself and make you better, because there's so many demands. So this opportunity not only gave me the opportunity to rest, but it provided a coach. It talked to me about my finances and paid my salary so that I can take the rest and it's not a burden on the Pittsburgh Public Theater. So I am thrilled, and it has been quite the experience.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. That's so great that they do that. So there is, though, a lot happening at the Pittsburgh Public right now because it's summer and you have a lot of programs happening. So tell us a little bit about some of the programs. So I know there are some, first the thing that's coming up is called Public Day.
Yes.
And it's a chance for people to just come out and,
Yes.
take a quick tour. And
That's right.
so tell us a little bit about that.
When I first came into the position, they were like, do you want a toast? Do you want a meeting? How do you want to be welcomed? And I said, I want us to open the doors and invite the community in. And so people need to know that we are present, we are there. They can come out and, as you said, have a tour. They can get headshots for $75 with a professional photographer. We have, free food, walking tacos. You can make candles. We have different vendors, TLC libations, line dancing, all types of things, and learn about the art through an exhibit that spans our 50-year history on the walls. So I think there's just an opportunity, and you can also jump double dutch. That I demanded that there be double dutch jumping so that I myself could partake. But yes, so just fun time to come learn about the theater and know that you belong there.
Yeah, and that is happening on July 12th.
That's right.
And so then some other things happening are acting classes for kids.
That's right.
on July 14th, character development. Why is that something that you're kind of instilling in budding actresses and actors so early?
I think we live in an age when diving into self-awareness and understanding of character, not only how it pertains to our own lives, but what it looks like to identify a character in a play and what is their motivation and how do you develop that as an actor or as an actress is something that we want to teach people young. And we also have adult classes, right? From the age of 5 to adulthood, you can come out this summer for summer sessions. And so that character work is important. It's the fundamental, the foundation for any artist that is seeking to be a part of a play or a production or to experience life in a way that is fulfilling.
Yeah. So we want to talk about some of the shows because this season is coming up and it's called Now More Than Ever.
Yes.
And so the first show, Noises Off.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
People say it's a raucous roller coaster of a ride. You get to see this disastrous kind of play within a play, and it's fun. A lot of slamming of doors, really kind of old school slapstick kind of comedy. And you watch these actors try to put on a show, and you get to see in front of the stage and also behind the stage. So it's very fun.
And that's October 1st through the 19th.
That's right.
And then, of course, A Christmas Story is back.
Yes. Perennial favorite. You know, I am not a Pittsburgher, but I have heard about the Kaufman clock and the windows and the traditions. People now bring their families annually. Some of the kids age out, but we recast them, and you'll see some familiar faces and some new faces as a part of this production that marks the holiday season at the Public.
Okay, and Enemy of the People, February.
Yes, so a man is dropped into a city, there's contamination, and the question is, do you stand for justice or the almighty dollar? So I think there's just a little something for everyone in the season, as well as the final production.
Yeah, and then in March, Primary Trust.
Yes.
Which is a Pulitzer Prize winning.
That's right, by Ebony Booth. It is going to be a phenomenal production that kind of focuses on radical kindness. What does it look like when the main character, Kenneth, loses his job and kind of feels like he's alone? And many times, often we feel that way, especially with the changing economy. You know, maybe we don't know where we fit anymore. And I think it's a nice way to button the season with some radical kindness and camaraderie.
All right, well, it's so much to go see.
Yes.
We're going to go see it all.
Please.
Thank you so much for being with us again. We appreciate it.
Thank you for always including the arts. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll have my last word when we come back. Rebuild. Every now and then, we need a reboot, a recharge. It's sort of like spring cleaning, getting rid of the old items that are taking up space to make room for something new. Sometimes it's a spruce up, but sometimes it's an overhaul. Either way, there can be advantages that gives us space to come up with new ideas, new strategies, and new approaches. And ultimately, the opportunity to assess what's really worth saving. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Intersections.